No good to be a bird in a cage. When the doors open, better fly away. Freedom came her way one day when the circus came along. Arna and the pirates all at sea. Oh, Arna and...
The next evening, after the pirates had sailed all day, raiding a ship that was carrying cheeses and olives on its way to the king's palace, putting the pirates in a good mood, the Sunrise anchored off an uninhabited island, where they refilled their barrels with water from a stream and gathered some firewood. Then at night, when the work was done, and everyone's bellies were full of the king's delicacies, Arna came up to Nancy's cabin to hear the rest of the story. She tried to refuse the cup of wine that Nancy poured for her, but the captain insisted, and, well, she did want to hear the story. Eventually, they let me out of the hole they had put me in. I was washed and clothed again to take my place as Princess Rana in the court. They made me this eye patch, and the king raised an eyebrow at my return, but didn't say anything else about it. And if he wasn't going to say anything, then neither was I. I pretended not to feel anything. I buried deep inside my hate for him and my desperate desire to escape Arna. But how would I do it? Caw! Caw! His hawks were always circling, and I'm sure the guards were under special orders to keep an eye on me. The walls of the palace were too high to climb, and I was never allowed to leave the palace by the gates. From my bedroom window I could see the blue horizon of the sea, and I dreamed of being free out there on the waves, having adventures. Well, now you are, Nancy. Yes, and in some ways, Arna, I feel like I'm still not free. As long as the king lives, I'm in his shadow. So, how did you escape? Well, it was a bit of good luck, really. One day there came a travelling circus to the palace, a ragged troupe of performers. Everyone in the palace was so excited about it. We watched as they put on their colourful clothes and makeup. They laughed and joked and didn't seem to understand why we were all so silent and serious. It was the first time in my life I'd seen people laughing like that. They set up a stage in front of the throne not far from the tiger pit. I suppose that sharpened their concentration. It was already afternoon by the time they blew a loud conch shell to announce the show was starting, and everyone stopped work to come and watch. First, there was a strong man who broke coconuts in half by smashing them on his head. Perhaps that explained why he had no hair and why he kept on getting everyone's names wrong. Not Billy the Bully. Then there were the two jugglers who tossed knives back and forth to each other. They could even do it blindfold. They looked so similar, both of them a bit like stray dogs. I guess they were brothers. But when they dropped something, they began to argue about whose fault it was. Was that Pete and Jake? My favourite, though, was the acrobat who could walk on her hands. She hopped about like a monkey in one moment and a jaguar the next. She looked friendly, but she never said a word. Days. Then came the woman who seemed to be in charge of the whole circus, from the respect that everybody showed to her. She walked on stage with a little drum, and she played softly as she sang with brilliant eyes, long dreadlocks trailing behind her. Kamea! She began to sing, and everyone held their breath. It had been years since anyone had ever dared sing in the palace. I'll never forget it. Little bird in your cage, stretch your wings, don't be shy. Little bird, freedom awaits. The door is open, out you fly. But the king hated music, and songs in particular. He threw a handful of coins down at the performers and told them if they were still there by the time the sun went down, they would be dinner for the tigers. I was sent to my room, and I looked out the window sadly, wondering what adventures the circus must have, what places they would see. But then I heard someone whistle, and I saw that the performers had gathered under my window. And while the acrobat performed tricks to get the attention of the guards on the other side of the palace, they made a human pyramid under my window. And I understood the meaning of the song. I was the little bird, Arna, and it was time to fly away. I climbed down on their shoulders, and they bundled me up in a wooden box of clothes. I felt them lift me up, and I stayed perfectly still and quiet as they carried me out of the palace onto their wagon that was pulled by a donkey. We travelled for an hour before they stopped and let me out. I looked around me. I couldn't believe it. Free, Arna. Even the air tasted different. I looked around at these wonderful circus performers and I felt like they could do anything. I had found my true family. Now you are free, little bird, Kameya told me. Great, I said. Where do we go now? But she frowned. You cannot come with us, my little mango. The king will be looking for you. It's too dangerous. Mango? Why did she call you that, Nancy? I know. Weird, right? She calls me that sometimes, but will never tell me why. Anyway, I realized she was right. The king would be sending out his soldiers to track me down as soon as he realized I was gone. But yet to be free and alone, I felt lost, quite helpless. Go to the mountains, Kameya advised me. There are wild places there where you can hide and grow. They gave me a blanket and some food, and then they hurried their donkey and wagon down the road, leaving me alone. The first time in my life, Arna. I did as Kameya told me, and I headed towards the mountains. I travelled only at night when I knew the hawks wouldn't be flying. By day I slept in the branches of trees. The performers had given me some normal clothes to wear, and they felt so rough on my skin after all the fine silks of those princess dresses. Sometimes I heard patrols of soldiers passing by, asking people if they'd seen me. I would wait still in the branches, not daring to breathe until they had passed. But day by day, the mountains grew nearer. I found fruit to eat on the way. I drank from the river. And then my path started going higher and higher, and the farmlands were left behind. The air grew colder, fresher, sharper. The nature was wilder, and I was no longer afraid of the soldiers finding me there. I saw mountain peaks covered in snow. I wandered through pine forests, and then, one day, I met the man who would change my life. Who was it, Nancy? Let me tell you about it tomorrow, my dear. Is your pearl safe? Yes, I put it into a leather pouch, and now I keep it around my neck. Good idea. You can't be too careful. In the next episode, we're going to find out how Rana, or Nancy, became such an amazing swordswoman. My name's Tom Thumb. If you like these stories, well, tell your friends, tell your family, tell the world, and if you have any questions about them, you can always contact me via my website, tomthumb.org. The link is in the show notes.
Arna and the pirates all at sea, oh Arna and the pirates all at sea, Arna and the The pirates are at sea and they'll never come home again. They'll never come